let's go ahead and start the show. What's up, you beautiful people? This is Gary Horton. This is the NWA. It is the podcast celebrating the past, present, future, history, legacy, and tradition of the greatest pro wrestling entity of all time. We're talking about the National Wrestling Alliance. And as always, I am joined by the other members of the Bearded Trio. We're talking about Hey, it's Will.Daily. Hello, Hey, it's Will.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome.
And the Dr. McLovin is what he would prefer to be known as. Dr. Rob Stinson is here.
Good evening, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us, man. Beautiful Sunday.
I am so happy to be here with you guys on Sunday. Everybody in the chat room, thank you for joining us. And if you're listening to this later, thank you also. You're just supported. We appreciate you. And today, we're going to start off by hitting some news, and then we're going to be talking about the Great American Bash 1986, which is today is the anniversary of one of those shows that occurred with a big NWA World Heavyweight Championship main event. So that's going to be fun to dive into. And hopefully, if you guys saw the links early on, we tried to be ahead of it this time so that you would know what we're going to be talking about, so you had time to watch it. I know I saw WWE Front Row in the chat who said he knew what he was doing on Saturday. And I've seen it twice now, so feeling pretty good about it. But first, let's spend the little bit of time we got left in Will's schedule for news. Talk about the news.
We have 3.5 minutes. Go. I'm just kidding.
All right, 3.5 minutes. There was a Cardi Town Council meeting on Thursday night. If you're a member of the Patreon, you were able to be a part of that. I think there was something like 25 people in there, but we were joined by Joe Galley, Nick Aldis, and the president, William Patrick Corgan. And they were there to take your questions. I mean, Joe pitched a couple at them, and then it was up to whoever said they had something to ask. They were able to ask. Rob wasn't able to be there. Technically, Rob wasn't able to be there because he was tied up with Eddie Kingston. By the way, if you haven't seen the latest edition of Piper's Notes, could not get better timing than that. Eddie Kingston. Well, that'll be a news item for a minute, but
it was on. I had it on in the background, so just so you know, I wasn't absent. I just we had other work going on. I did have it on, so I was able to listen and hear WWE Front Row, or just Front Row's outstanding shout out for us, and we appreciate that love, and the NWA family strong. Hashtag NWA family strong. Right, so.
Yep.
Super sweet of WWE Front Row. He did mention to Mr. Corgan about hey, are you aware of stuff like this show out there that, keeping the, as we always say, keeping the flame alive. And said he was. And I think the coolest part about it was he talked a little bit about how he'd had some dark days during all of this and depression, but that Nick actually kind of translated that over to him. Hey, pay attention. There's still a lot of people in our corner. A lot of people got our backs, and there's people still talking about us right now in positive ways. So Billy, basically said that helped bring him back around to do something. So we're happy to hear that. Fellas, when you were listening to it, though, I mean, what kind of stuff stood out to you?
Well, I think, just as you said, I mean, there wasn't like an earth-shattering announcement, and I think there was a little bit of buzz that we were going to hear something, definite, set in stone. But what we did learn was just more optimism around the fact that the NWA is not going anywhere. They are coming back, and they're working really hard to find the best way to do that. And so William Patrick Corgan reiterated that. Nick Aldis reiterated that. And so that was just really encouraging to hear, that they would come in front of us and basically reiterate. And, Corgan did say that he had gotten a phone call earlier in the day that was very positive. We don't know the details about that, but could be a wrestling event or some kind of show coming up in the future. And that we should, he said that we should expect to hear something soon. So that was really cool.
Yeah, same thing. I mean, nothing but positivity. Like you said, nothing earth-shattering, but it was good to get that reassurance to say, when we have a certain standard of quality of production and expectation that we're committed to meeting. We were told in the Patreon by Maureen that we will be getting something this month. I'm not sure what that amounts to, but they're coming back probably sooner than later in whatever capacity that amounts to. And of course, we knew they would. Again, if you've listened to Will out there on his various outlets, from the Hot Tag to some of the other shows he's done, Standing Streamer, whatnot. I mean, the message has been the same. They're not going anywhere, and they're coming back, and they're coming back soon, and they will deliver. And of course, our champion has been out there reassuring the public too with his open letter, which I'm sure we'll get into, and excellent video he put out yesterday. But we're in good hands, guys. It's going to be okay. And this month, Maureen says, something NWA related is coming.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see what that is. I think my biggest takeaway too was that they do feel like they've got some sort of a plan going forward, or at least they're thinking about it now, and that's the important part. It's in the works. They're pressing on and stepping forward with the whole thing, which is it's felt kind of stagnant, and they're not even thinking about things. I thought it was interesting to hear him talk, Corgan. I mean, not even just like nationally and like what's going to happen with COVID and everything here, but just the future in general. He's talking about globally thinking. And I know he mentioned a lot about like India and China and just these opportunities that like people don't think there's a place for a new addict there. He's like, these places have like 1.5 billion people or something like in one of these places, and you don't think that they're not going to have like new stars they can latch onto and new things they can get into. That just interested me, just like even hearing him talk about that. So like you really see, you feel like the spark is lit in him again. Like he's thinking about like ideas of like everywhere to attack this thing, and I thought that was really cool. It was nice just to hear, honestly, from him. Like Nick's been out there off and on, so it was just nice to hear Mr. Corgan also talk about it, which was a little different than what we've seen. He's been kind of radio silent for a while.
Yeah, absolutely. It was just overall, it was super encouraging. It was cool that they opened up for questions, and that's a gutsy move, and you're not going to get that from any other wrestling company. People were saying that during the meeting that we're speaking out. It was just like, what other wrestling promotion do you get to sit and have FaceTime with the president, the champion, and actually ask questions? And it was just a really cool time.
Yeah, and news-wise too, just for what it's worth, WWE Front Row, who was a part of that in the chat, mentioned that one of the things that stood out to him was that he talked about forward thinking, that new stuff would be forward thinking. What do you think that could look like? That is an interesting question, because he did mention that he didn't see like power actually working for now. I wonder what he's thinking, like as far as from here on. Well, what does that mean, forward thinking, I guess?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. I don't have a clear speculation of what that means. I think it's just kind of par for the course when you think about NWA producing wrestling content that doesn't fit the mold of mainstream wrestling. I think they're going to look to be a little more creative. And if this is a reality, and one thing he did mention too that really stuck out to me, that a very prominent music industry colleague of his had predicted that there's probably not even going to be concerts in 2021, like big live events. So obviously we hope that's not the case, but if people who know what they're talking about are saying that and predicting that, I think their head is probably in a place of like, okay, if empty arena or whatever is the new normal, how can we be the most creative with it? And I think that they're going to come up. I mean, these are the same minds that brought us Carneyland. You know what I mean? Like they're going to bring us something that is ultra creative, without compromising that prize fight mentality and the way that the company's built.
Right, and it wouldn't surprise me either. And again, we don't have the direct inside scoop on this, so don't take this for anything other than. But just as my opinion, it would not surprise me to see our champ. He's aching to defend this belt. He wants to defend the belt in some way. So it would not surprise me to see this go into another, almost like an Aldis Crusade type deal, where he's visiting some smaller promotions and not devaluing the belt, defending against lesser names or anything like that, but you know, just for instance, like, and maybe we'll talk about this in a minute. We dropped some AWF content on the NWA channel yesterday. That's a small territory in Northwest Georgia. It's actually the longest running independent promotion in the Southeast, but everybody comes through there, from Aldis to, you know, Kevin Nash, Scott Hall, Ric Flair. The Rock and Roll Express have a very, very deep history with Paul Lee, who's the owner and promoter, Nationwide Paul Lee. He's very controversial. Some people hate him, others love him. He's one of my really good friends, and he has provided me with opportunities that I never would have had otherwise. But seeing Aldis maybe appear in stuff like that, I think would be perfect. And I don't think that's outside the realm of possibility. I think, but when it comes to the NWA, they want to make sure that the standards where it's always been, which is at the utmost. So, I don't know. What do you think about that, Gary?
Well, yeah, I think that's 100% what's on his mind. I can elaborate a little bit on one thing I had heard. You know, the Billy did mention, so I think it's safe to say, as previously, but you know, I never want to speak out of turn with anything if I can help it that's not based in fact. But you know, he mentioned that with COVID doing what it's done, it's ruined a couple of things, and like touring was one of the things they had on their plate at a certain point. Like they were getting ready to announce like possibly touring. I had heard through the grapevine that was going to be a thing, and you know, obviously Billy has a relationship. Mr. Corgan, I should say, has a relationship with Live Nation and those folks. He was going to be doing a tour with Guns N' Roses through all of that. So maybe that was somehow connected to the dealings he was having. Maybe that's even the dealings that he's got going on with, you know, as far as the industry news that Will just mentioned. Maybe that's where he's hearing that stuff. That's speculation. I don't know about that part, but anyway, just I don't see touring being out of the realm of possibility for these, especially if folks like our champ Nick Aldis are willing to travel. Then maybe that is something that they throw out there. If he's willing to give it a go, then I don't see why not. Speaking of Nick Aldis, too, I do want to make sure I mention one of the nice pieces of news I thought that I'm excited about personally, and I think everyone should be, is that Nick did drop the news. Also, he had just filmed a pilot for a training show, like a training documentary, I guess you could call it. He and Tom Latimer had shot some stuff over at Tried and True Pro Wrestling, and he had, I think, tried to pit Billy, and Billy wasn't, you know, he's trying to get Billy an idea of what they're doing, but he's got the pilot. He's currently in the editing it. So he was saying in that conversation that he at least hoped to have it as like a Patreon exclusive or something, if nothing else, you know. But I'm sure that he'd love to have it like be a regular featured part of the NWA product. So I'm open for good things like that. Anytime I hear something like that, immediately my mind goes to things like, I don't know how many MMA fans we have here, but if you've watched things like The Ultimate Fighter and that sort of thing, that actually got me into UFC back in the day. And I think something like that could be really cool. Like if they can develop some sort of a system and show folks working their way up in the ranks and like what the process is for training and becoming a professional wrestler. This could be good stuff. I mean, we've seen attempts at it with things like Tough Enough and that sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of differences Mr. Aldis has in mind when he's going into this thing. But I'm excited to see that. So hopefully everybody else is. I get that done. And that'll be some new.
Let me add
content.
something to what you're saying, just to piggyback on that. And again, I'm going to plug this AWF thing a couple of times. It just so happens that one of our featured talent in the promotion is Alex Taylor, who is in that school, that Tried and True school. He teaches along with Tom Latimer and legitimate talent, works alongside guys like Crimson, and he is the inaugural, what they're calling the AWF Viral Champion, which is sort of like their version of the TV title or the TNT Championship. It's defended on the arena show that they do, and I think there's an episode coming out today. It might already be out. I'm trying to talk to those guys into letting us put all of that on our channel. If you guys like it and would like to see that, please go over there and like and subscribe and let them know, hey, we want to see this on this channel to get what you're doing out to a bigger audience. So their digital presence is not as big as ours is, and that's the only reason. It's not like, you know, we're trying to be egotistical and get that over here, but we'd like more people to see that stuff. So
Yeah, and if I could, just to give him a shout out, WWE Front Row sent me some notes over from the thing, so I'm just going to read through them real quick. If we missed anything here, likely you'll hear it. We just want to present everybody with everything that we know based off of that meet so far. He's got a note here that wrestling content coming soon, likely modeled after other companies' blueprints. They did talk about that. They've been looking at some of the things other companies have been doing. But power tapings would wait until they can safely do them in the show with fans. So we kind of covered that a little bit. The question of Zicky Dice did come up during that conversation. Zicky Dice is under content. That was kind of where they left that discussion. But they did talk a little bit about Eddie Kingston saying he isn't under contract with the NWA or AEW at this point that they're aware of. They would love to keep working with him if at all possible. And Nikki Starks also came up for what it's worth. And Mr. Corgi just saying that he was proud of what Starks had accomplished so far and loved working with him. Billy said that he is very proud of Thunder Rosa and Mission Pro Wrestling. He thinks that that's a really cool concept. He hopes that they can work together, and she is still the NWA Women's World's Champion. So let there be no question about that for whatever reason that he's hoping they can have a great partnership and a working relationship. But he said one of his main goals is not to create subpar content just to satisfy Patreon subs. They will provide value in any way they can and in their own ways. Nick shared a story in the middle of the thing about how he loved in the power tapings that there was the live crowd that shut down snarky fan chants. He said he was really proud of that. I thought that was just a cool story. I forget how it actually even came up, but was talking about how he thought one of the cool things about the NWA audience is the audience there when people start those, like, you know, quote unquote smart fan chants, trying to be a-holes or smart asses. Like everybody just immediately kind of shut it down and was like, no, we don't do that here. Like we're into the show and what's being presented to us. And they did say no current plans to work with AEW, but Billy is open to any discussions with any company where it makes sense. Billy spoke about his strong relationship with Joe Koff from Ring of Honor. That he did say they do talk pretty regularly still. And but Billy did say they're making changes to the way the NWA is going to be presented and says they're trying to be very forward-thinking. And, of course, the other note that I see here is that just Billy talked a little bit about his depression in the early pandemic days, but how the fans continue to support and uplift him. And Nick also echoed that sentiment. So those are the main points I wanted to give Front Row shout out. He was taking those notes during the actual meeting itself. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to add about that meeting, or shall we move on?
That's good and thorough. Thanks, Front Row. Appreciate it. Thanks for that rundown.
Is it just the best?
He is. Yes,
He is. He is. My favorite.
Anybody is hashtag NWA fam is Front Row. He is a godsend.
Yeah, absolutely. So with all of that said, if you guys haven't checked out from Friday on our YouTube channel, there's a brand new episode of Piper's Notes. Piper Stinson, the better of the Stinsons, in my personal opinion. She has her own show. Completely. She has her own show where she gets to interview a lot of different folks, talking about music and just everything in general. Is not just wrestlers, but a lot of wrestlers. And it's a very cool show. If you guys haven't checked that out, you got to check it out. But this week's episode, delivered on Friday, features the Mad King himself, Eddie Kingston, and it's an outstanding interview. I loved it. I'm really proud that it's on this is the NWA Podcast Network here, and it's really good stuff. And especially great timing because the next news item that we had here is that Eddie Kingston debuted on AEW Dynamite this past Wednesday. So, Rob, you guys couldn't have nailed that any better. I mean, of course, all credit to Piper for locking down that interview.
She did her action research, man. She was on it. She follows Meltzer and all the rumor mills, so she was like that. Send him a picture of this cute face and see it. Not my cute face, her cute face.
Yeah, and who's gonna big time Piper? Nobody's gonna try to big league her and not do the interview after they locked it in. But I have no shame in admitting, and I don't mean this as a knock against anybody, but I don't regularly watch AEW Dynamite. I did tune in for this whole segment with Eddie's debut and his match against Cody. Unfortunately, he came up short as far as the match itself goes, but delivered a fire promo at the beginning and had some great interaction with him. And my personal favorite was with Arn. His interactions with Arn, for some reason, I just really enjoyed, about knocking his jaw off his face, or he swore on his mother's eyes that if he said another word, he was going to gouge his eyes out. And that kind of stuff was a lot of fun. But what did you think of Eddie Kingston making his debut on AEW Dynamite?
It was brilliant, man. I mean, the fact that he led with a promo, I mean, it just that's who he is. He's going to talk before he takes you to town in the ring, and they let him do that. And I don't pretend to know what goes on behind the scenes with planning and booking all that, but I do feel like, I mean, he was 100% allowed to be himself, which I don't think Eddie Kingston cannot be himself. So, but he was allowed to come out and I say allowed like it's, I don't know how things work in AEW, but, it seems that he was given the freedom to come out and be himself and cut that promo and put on a hell of a match, man. I mean, it was super entertaining. And I'm like you, Gary, not a knock on AEW. I just don't, there's only so much time in the week, and, I'll catch up on newsworthy stuff, but I don't typically watch it live. Unless, I know something big is going to happen or it's a big event or something. But this was definitely something I went back and watched the whole segment as not live, but shortly after on DVR, just to experience it as it happened. So it was a really cool moment, I thought.
I just want to jump in here real quick because this is important stuff, because I'm going to run out really soon if I don't say this. We're getting reports in the chat that people want to buy us beer, but the link does not work. So,
oh, no.
FYI.
No. All right, hang on.
So anyway, just throwing that out there.
I fix it. Don't worry.
Rob, what'd you think of Eddie Kingston on AEW Dynamite, and how did that impact you going into Piper's Notes with
right?
with
Yeah. I watch AEW. When we're not doing our show, we go head to head with them with Dark. Our show does, so that we have the Tuesday night rating for. So I don't get to see Dark every time. I usually go back and watch. I like AEW because I really like Brody Lee a lot. Always have. I don't know what it is about him. I love Chris Jericho. I'm an NWA guy, and I think something about them strikes me as traditional, So I do watch it, and we were sitting there watching it, man, and I had no clue. We've been talking with Eddie Kingston for about 2 weeks, guys, when I let you know that we got the interview with him. Yeah. And my first thought, honestly, and Eddie Kingston, let me tell you, he is very gracious. I won't go into all the details about how we booked the interviews and how we established that communication, but we had established a link of communication with him. He was talking to us every day about, hey, this is the bands I'm really into, and then about Tuesday, our communication went black. He wasn't responding, which is cool. I mean, I know he's busy, and everybody in the world, Eddie Kingston is one of those ones that's universally respected, and everybody wants to talk to him, especially in light of the back and forth between he and Nick Aldis. But about Tuesday, the communication just went dark, and I wasn't getting any responses. And I would just send one or two. I'm not just carpet bombing him with emails or anything like that. Then he came out on Dynamite. And we were like, my first thought was oh my gosh, this is amazing. And my second thought was oh, he's not going to do our show tomorrow. But then that night, I'm telling you, AEW went off. An hour later, he messaged and said, hey, I'm still in, guys. Dude, I'm going to do this, and I'm looking forward to it. I love what you guys do. And so that was my initial thought. Like you said, I love his talking with Arn Anderson. It was just surreal to me, and it was cool, man. Very much a fan of Eddie Kingston.
Absolutely. Can't say enough good things about Eddie. And if you guys have not checked it out, again, you got to go over to Piper's Notes and get through that thing. And for anybody who was concerned about the situation regarding Eddie Kingston and Nick Aldis, since they've been talking a little smack back and forth, Eddie Kingston does get prompted by Mr. Stinson at the end. The story is with that whole thing, and Eddie Kingston is quick to jump on and let Nick Aldis know what's up. Actually, I think he starts off with, Nick already knows what's up. Yeah. But let me lay it down. And so we get a nice little promo there from Eddie Kingston on our champion, Mr. Aldis. So very cool.
Let me say something about just offline. Just, you know, when we do Piper's Notes, and everybody here, both willing, well, Gary's been on it, Will's coming on it, and many of you actually are going to be on it. We do. Can I take a second to just talk about Piper's Notes, Gary?
I wish you wouldn't. I don't know why I always have to be a smartass with you, Rob. I'm so sorry. No, obviously, I've been gushing about Piper's Notes.
If you were on the schedule, I think something's wrong. But Piper's Notes is this is our attempt to show that wrestling is a very high form of culture and entertainment along the lines of any other form of performance sport or entertainment like Broadway, baseball, whatever. It fits in that same genre. And so when we have our guest on, you'll find that we will touch on wrestling briefly, because to set the context, and you know, most of our viewers are wrestling fans, but we don't really talk about wrestling on there. But we get entertainers, we get rock stars. We've got Amanda Palmer from Dresden Dolls coming on later this week. We've had Will Control from Aiden. We've had everybody who's anybody in the NWA has been on virtually, and more are coming. We've got a lot. We've got like 9 on our schedule right now. But we also do super fans. So most of you who are in this chat right now, at some point, we will reach out to you to ask to come on our show, because it's about building community and building the fam, which includes both the talent and the fan base. And this Friday, we're having Donna Wrestling, who is a saint. We love her. She is very gracious and just an amazing, amazing person, and loves wrestling and is just rooted in the wrestling culture and has been NWA from day one. And then I think the week after that, we have Nikki Starks, who, you know, today is the anniversary of match 7 between he and Maggie TA. So it's somewhat timely. But anyway, I just wanted to plug that. That's kind of what that is. If you go on to Piper's Notes, for those of you in the chat who haven't seen it and expecting to get like a lot of bombshells and stuff, that's not going to happen. Every now and again, they'll drop some information, but that's not what we're about. Most of you are very intelligent. And they know what's going on. Wrestlers get hit with 100 interview requests, and they don't like them. They love Gary's now. Gary does it differently, and they speak universally positively about Gary and Will and the stuff that we do over here. But they'll go on these shoot interviews or these podcasts, and it's the same litany of questions. We don't want to do that with them. We want to put them in a different environment and talk about them as people and you know, how they bridge the gap between pro wrestling and their other cultural interests and how they got looped into that. So that's just a word of explanation. I just wanted to say that because I think the Eddie Kingston interview is so timely, and so we had such a great time with him, you know, and he told us that he is not giving an interview, and he is not giving an interview until things settle down with the AEW and the NWA and all that. And so this is the NWA podcast. That is the only official interview you're going to get from Eddie Kingston until things settle down a little bit. So pretty humbled and honored by that.
It's awesome. It's a great
who else but Sweetheart Piper could break down the walls of wild-eyed Eddie Kingston. It's but yeah, that's really cool stuff, and you get to see him like a softer side of Eddie almost. I mean, they're still talking Tupac and stuff like that. And he's still talking about beating people up. I got a question, Rob. When you said that most of you are very intelligent people, could you be more specific on who is and who is not?
Well, wrestling with the MMA is in the chat, so no, I'm kidding. No. If you get a chance, go on Standing Streamer's Twitch channel and listen to Will's interview. I gave an interview yesterday. It was terrible because I'm so long-winded and I just ran at the mouth. But Will's is outstanding. And Will goes on and on about how deep and loyal and invested and informed the NWA fan community is. Whether you're talking about Fort or wrestling with the MMA or WWE Front Row or Dr. Red or any Mass Fan, RJ, any of you guys, Nation Show, any of those, Scooby, the NWA fan community is the most informed, most educated, most loyal, most connected fan community, period. I mean, who else is going to hang out on a Sunday night and on a Tuesday night for 3+ hours just because we like each other's company? We're not doing this for us. We're not getting paid to do it. None of you are getting paid to do it. I'm sure you have other things you could do, but we just love each other, man, and we love what our mission is. So no, there's not. Most of us in here are intelligent, except for wrestling with. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's a great crowd.
Yeah, absolutely. We love all of you guys for hanging out with us. It's a lot of fun, and even like just having the regular people that we have that pop in here, it's just a blast to know that people love hanging out with us as much as we love hanging out with each other and you guys. It's really, really cool. Let's move this news stuff along. Enzo Amore, I got real redneck again. Enzo Amore has launched a wrestling school on OnlyFans. That is a thing that has happened. And
is that where we put our Manscaped videos on? Only
that's where you put your Manscaped videos on.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have a lot to say about it. He tweeted, and I'm Enzo. I'm looking forward to getting to know all my real fans right here on OnlyFans. Thank you so much for all the support. I guarantee this pro wrestling tutorial series, You Can't Teach That Incorporated, will be a truly eye-opening experience for any aspiring pro wrestler. You'll truly learn things that can't be taught. Thanks for allowing me the chance to give back. Enjoy, and that's Amore. So, thoughts, fellas, on Enzo Amore? Like, I don't know. I assume it's just promo school. I don't know what else you could really do there.
Couple things just from a marketing and branding standpoint here. If you're going to teach something, your tagline probably shouldn't be "You can't teach that," because that seems counterintuitive. So that was the first thing I noticed because my brain thinks like a marketer. But yeah, I don't know if it's going to be promos or if he's going to. I don't know how you teach physical professional wrestling through video. I don't know, but it's interesting to say the least. So,
well, I will say that Enzo, for those of you who have been following the NWA podcast in the last 48 hours and saw that we dropped the episode 1 of season 2 of AWF Viral, that stands for American Wrestling Federation. Enzo made his AWF debut on July the 11th, and that is covered in that episode. So if you are interested, go to the podcast, look at that episode. And so we had a chance to do a little bit of work with Enzo here very, very recently.
Yeah, absolutely. Next bit of news that we've got here is courtesy of Wade Keller at the PW Torch. Just wanted to mention this. Impact. We don't get to talk about them very often, but on Tuesday this week drew 163,000 viewers, up from 106,000 the week before and 135,000 the week before that. The average since March 24th has been 145,000. So it appears the buzz generated from the Slammiversary pay-per-view on Saturday night with the arrival of Heath Slater, Luke Gallows, Carl Anderson, and the return of EC3, the Motor City Machine Guns, and Eric Young have helped add some viewers to Impact. Impact drew more viewers on May 12th, and 9 of the first 10 weeks of the year drew more than 163,000. The empty arena setting has correlated to drops in viewership in the single-digit percentages compared to projections based on the seasonal ebb and flow of viewership annually. But basically, Impact is growing right now. They're showing a pretty large increase in viewership, especially coming out of Slammiversary. Now, I'm wondering about that myself because I don't know about you guys, but I saw a lot of buzz for Impact coming out of Slammiversary. I was this close. I was this close to getting Slammiversary because I was curious, like, who was going to show up. I didn't end up getting the pay-per-view, but I was on top of the news, like, on who debuted. So it had my attention. And I know some of the folks in our NWA Discord that we've got going on right now. By the way, if you guys aren't in that, you should definitely join. There's a link in the bio. But a lot of people in there were doing like watch-alongs for Impact Wrestling this past week after Slammiversary. So I guess just thoughts there, guys. You think this is just luck of the draw, or they've actually worked hard and are generating attention?
Well, I think it's good all around. I mean, I'll admit I watched the first probably 30 to 45 minutes. We went live that night. That was our last stream. So I didn't watch all of it, but yeah, I mean, I was curious, and I had actually never watched Impact live before. And I think it was pre-taped. It wasn't actually live, maybe, but I watched it on Twitch because I don't have the cable channel that it comes on. But I mean, when I hear stories like this, I mean, first of all, one of the things I've covered a lot on Hey It's Will Daily is just how terrible the Black Wednesday was when all those WWE wrestlers were released. And one of the things I've said over and over was that it'll be better when we start seeing these guys land gigs and start appearing more, and that's what's happening. So for me, it's a positive to see these guys back on TV, back doing something that they're great at, and being used, their talent being utilized. And we say it all the time. Rob says it all the time. The wrestling pie is big enough for everyone, right? I mean, there's different strokes for different folks, and we happen to be NWA first faithful, but that doesn't mean there's not room for other promotions. And I watched it, and I actually really enjoyed it. Willie Mack was on there in a really great match, and it was good to see him again. And it was great wrestling, obviously different production than what we're used to with Power and stuff like that, but it's a different promotion, and I think they're doing a great job, and I'm happy for them, and hope it continues to grow.
Yeah, 100%. I think that when Impact does well, pro wrestling does well. It's I consider them somewhat related to the NWA, and NWA is a meta promotion, so they all are, but especially Impact and like Ring of Honor and places like that. So everything Will said, 100% agree with.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I mean, these numbers don't put it anywhere near NXT or AEW right now or anything like that. We're not saying that. It's just that there is a steady increase right now going on with them. And so it would be interesting to see if they could carve out their own niche in the wrestling world as it is. Now, one of the things that's going to test that coming up that we're starting to see that starts to make you worry if you do that sort of thing for WWE, is that live sports are starting to come back, or will be coming back over the next little bit. Baseball has obviously made its appearance now, and supposedly the NFL will start popping up. Soccer's around, and so we're going to start seeing if any of that starts cutting into pro wrestling, because they've had like a pretty open range, like no competition really, except maybe UFC on Saturday nights or something. But anyway, just going to be interesting to see what happens from here.
Yeah, I'm hoping it'll be good. And I mean, I'm gonna continue to tune in to Impact just to see what's going on, and maybe I'll catch a storyline and it'll hook me in. We don't have any NWA wrestling right now, so I'm not closed off to checking it out and getting into it.
Well, I'm going to jump into one more news item that I've got here, unless you guys have something else. This will be the last thing we talk about in the news portion before we jump into Great American Bash 1986. I'm not happy to share this with you. I'm not even happy that I'm clicking on this video, but I can't find where the words are that I can just read them to you. So I'm gonna play this if you guys are down with hearing this. There's not really much video to it exactly, so if I get spotty, as long as you can hear it, that's the important part. But to preface the next portion of this, I need about 5 minutes of your time here to listen to a little something that happened on Something to Wrestle with Bruce Prichard and Conrad Thompson the other day. So I'm going to do that.
Rob, cover your ears.
Oh, don't do it, Gary. Don't say you're not doing it.
Do it, buddy.
Son of a...
Speaking of professional and easy to work with, they bring back Magnus, who we now know is Nick Aldis, the NWA World Champion, over on the Power program on YouTube. He was a TNA staple for a long, long time, His wife is still under WWE contract, but it doesn't feel like, for whatever reason, he really got much of a shake with WWE. Why do you think that is? I mean, obviously he's, carved his own path here and doing very well as the NWA World Champion, but I think a lot of people look at that guy and say he could be on WWE. What's missing for him in the relationship with WWE?
I don't know what is missing with the relationship with him and WWE. I can tell you what is missing in the relationship with him and just about everybody else is, I think that it, and no matter what you want to say, he's got a great look.
Yeah.
He can work.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's just something that he's missing, and that doesn't have a connection to take him to the next level. There's times, unfortunately, where I feel that he was playing a part instead of being the part. He wasn't being Magnus. He was just playing Magnus and what he thought Magnus should be. And there wasn't a lot of, it wasn't genuine. Probably the biggest critique I can give there.
You've said this a lot through the years that so-and-so, well, he was just playing wrestler. Tell me, I mean, can you go a little deeper on how to differentiate the two when a guy is that and when he's playing that? I mean, I understand what the words mean in general, but can you give us examples?
Yeah, Steve Austin was Steve Austin. Steve Austin drank beer. Steve Austin was a loudmouth and pretty much a redneck. He turned the volume up, but you didn't have to dig for that character.
Part of what you were saying there cut out. You've got a little tricky internet today, but we're going to power through. Give me the Steve Austin example again.
No, the Steve Austin is a loudmouth, redneck, beer drinking hellraiser. That's who he is. The volume's turned up, yes, but there's not a departure from the human being in the character. Playing wrestler, I think, is, I'll use John Layfield as an example for two different things, because John was playing wrestler when he was Justin Hawk, whatever the hell he was. And then later on as the Blackjacks, he was playing a blackjack. John came into his own in the APA because he got to play himself. And then it later on evolved into JBL. And again, that's just who he is. Volume turned up. So he went through both. He went through playing wrestler to becoming a character that was true to him. And Magnus was playing Magnus. Nick Aldis, I don't know who he is. He's a nice guy, a little insecure, and came over from whatever British gladiators to become Magnus because Dixie liked his look. But who's Magnus? And I don't know that he ever just embraced actually being whoever that character was. I could be Brother Love.
Have you seen any of his work as Nick Aldis, as the NWA champ?
Yeah. He's trying to be what he thinks the NWA champion should be.
I see. Let's
Harley Race. It's just Harley Race.
Right.
He didn't have to put on airs. Dusty Rhodes was Dusty Rhodes. He didn't have to put on airs. Ric Flair is Ric Flair. You going to tell me there's ever a minute of the day that you don't believe that Ric Flair is Ric Flair?
Well, he believes it.
That's right. Maybe too much.
Well, that's debatable. Let's talk about that for a minute, though. I was ready to move on, but since you doubled down, I do want to circle back. I mean, if somebody brings in the character Magnus and says, hey, you're going to be Magnus, he has to try to figure out what they want, right? I mean, it's not like he can just go be himself.
Well, I think whoever the hell came up with that gimmick should have figured out what the hell they wanted and known instead of just be Magnus.
Right. Yeah, it just
So
feels
I don't
like
know if that ever happened either.
Yeah, and it may not have, and that may explain why, you know, he's out here doing his best to give what his quote unquote bosses, you know, the people who hired him, the people who are paying him, hey, if this is what you want, I'll try to give you that. But I don't know, it feels a little chicken and the egg when we compare old school examples, and we're talking about guys from the 70s and 80s, when realistically the way wrestling is produced has changed so much now that might be a little easier than it sounds. I mean, a little harder than it sounds.
Yes and no. And again, you have to find the character. You've got to believe it. You've got to live it and become that. It's very similar to Jim Carrey being Andy Kaufman while he was filming that movie. And you feel that if you can get lost in a guy in a movie and believe that that's actually them in a biopic, then they've done their job. They believe. Jim Carrey became Andy Kaufman in that movie, and he stopped being Jim Carrey.
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson. Thanks for checking out the pod.
All right. Yeah, savewithconrad.com, you know, just to give them the proper credit. So Bruce Prichard says that Nick Aldis lacks, quote unquote, it. And he's not very authentic, sounds like is what he's trying to say here. And he's just putting on airs, I guess. I see one part of my screen steaming up already. So do we go to Will first to try to slowly lead into this? Because we got to hear from Rob eventually.
Let's rip off the Band-Aid slowly. First of all, in my opinion, everyone is entitled to their own opinion. I believe opinions should be weighed and not counted, so you always have to consider the source. This is nothing against Bruce Prichard. I don't typically listen to him. For me, he's not a source of anything that has shaped my wrestling viewpoint or anything like that. He's not a go-to person for me. Again, not discounting anything he's done or what he contributes or his point of view. I think for most of that interview, the portion that we just listened to, I was rationalizing a little bit, saying, okay, he's talking about Magnus. I'm not super familiar with that character, so maybe he's spot on. But then when they crossed the line and we're talking about Nick Aldis now as NWA champion, I don't, and somebody mentioned this in the chat, I don't consider Bruce Prichard an authority on modern day NWA. I don't really know if he's watched it, if he has time to, or if he's really spent any time looking into it to formulate a real opinion. And obviously I disagree wholeheartedly with his assessment. And I've been a wrestling fan my whole life, and I know what I'm talking about, much like you two guys and everybody in the chat right now, as smart wrestling fans. And I think Bruce Prichard's coming from a completely different viewpoint from that WWE mindset. And yeah, I can see how from a WWE mindset that doesn't jive well, because Nick Aldis isn't a cartoon character. And that's not me making a generalization about WWE, but I don't think he gets it. That's my kind of judgment of Bruce Prichard. I don't think he gets it, and for that reason, his opinion's not gonna carry a lot of weight with me.
Okay, Gary, give me 60 seconds, and if I'm still talking at 67, give me 30 more seconds, and then cut me off. Okay. First of all, right, just because a person has been a worker or has worked in some in a promotion in some executive role does not make them authority on everything related to wrestling. There are lots of freaking idiots out there, and Bruce Prichard, it's not like what a hypocrite. You want to talk about characters and being fake? Like, oh, you walk around like brother love all the time? Like you came up with that junk and that's how you live your life? Let me tell you something. Nick Aldis didn't invent Magnus, and he did it to the freaking nines. He killed that character. But what you see in the NWA with Nick Aldis is real authenticity. It's not a fake thing. It's not a show. It's real. And don't take my word for it. You don't have to. I'm nobody. I'm just a freaking mark like anybody else is. Listen to freaking Eric Bischoff. Listen to DDP. Listen to Harley Race. Listen to Dory Funk, who say that everything that Nick Aldis touches is important and that he's the real champion. So, you know what? Bruce Prichard, kiss my ass, dude.
Well said.
I'll just, yeah, I mean, I'll be honest with you. That was more gentle of a reaming than I expected. So good for you, Rob. I appreciate your restraint. I'll tell you what I don't think has it. WWE SmackDown or Raw right now.
Correct.
Considering they're sporting their lowest ratings of all time. So just throwing that out there.
Again, you got to consider the source. I mean, if this dude was creating a bang up wrestling show that was blowing it out of the water with characters that embody what he's talking about, well, then maybe that would carry weight, but he's not. So it doesn't really mean much to me. I hate that it's out there. I'm not going to presume.
Yeah, I hate that it's out there because it's. I'll tell you what. Like I'm also going to try not to go on a rant here, and I've gone on my Aldis rants in the past. But the thing is that, I mean, it's presumed to know everything about Bruce Prichard or what he's seen and what he hasn't, and how drunk it sounded like he was or not. I don't know, but I will say that. Going on a platform like his and doing that, I mean, that's some definite trash talking, and it doesn't sound like you're just talking about the character Magnus. It sounds like you're talking about the man himself, and that's pretty low considering what Nick Aldis has done. It sounds like he hasn't actually seen any of the NWA stuff. That's what I have to assume, because I don't know how you watched anything that's happened, especially over the last year or two with the NWA, and you don't think that Nick Aldis is a worthy champion and has quote unquote it.
Or again, if he has seen it, he just doesn't get it. He's not the target audience. He's not the same kind of wrestling fan that we are. And, that is what it is. Again, the biggest disappointment to me about all this is that it's out there and now people are going to jump on it without even knowing just because he said it. That's the problem I have with it.
Well, and that it damages a brand. These people are out here busting their ass and trying to earn a paycheck and trying to make themselves mean something to the world of professional wrestling. Now, it's one thing to disagree with booking. It's one thing to just hate a storyline. Like say you booked a show where the whole match stipulation is one guy's going to rip another dude's eyeball out. It's easy to have a problem with that and how stupid that is. But when you're attacking a person directly, you're attacking an individual, the human who is the person you're seeing on that screen, that's a whole different story. And that's what it sounds like he's doing here. That's my biggest problem with it, because now not only are you burying Nick Aldis, you're burying the brand, you're burying everybody it feels like you're, I don't know, maybe I even take that too personally, but it just,
I'm like, he's so unimportant that you're sitting there talking about him, he ate up 7 or 8 minutes of that freaking show, man, and again, I don't know anything, man. I don't have any special source of knowledge, or I just love wrestling and I've been watching it forever. I don't have any particular insight, but a lot of people who have insight will tell you that the reason Nick Aldis is putting in his best body of work ever in his career right now, because he is who he is. He's finally getting to be real. And who can dispute that? If you dispute that, and even guys in the chat, like my friend Wrestling with the MMA, we're good friends, man. He gives me hell. We roast each other. But even he in the foursome will tell you that whether you like what's going on in the ring with the storytelling, Nick Aldis is the real world's champion. He does it better than anybody else. And so for me, for his credibility, boom, no credibility. He completely dropped it. It's what you said, Gary. You're not really watching. You're just trying to sound informed.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, one thing I can tell you guys for certain, if you're not already aware, is that I have it on good authority that Nick Aldis has also heard these comments himself. And I can now confirm for certain he will be live on Busted Open Radio tomorrow morning at 10 Eastern, 9 Central. And you can bet that he will have something to say about this. So, I know we got a lot of Busted Open Radio fans. So expect that Mr. Aldis will not let that lie. I am sure. I'm sure that Busted Open is having Nick Aldis on because they also expect that Nick Aldis will not want to let that lie, and so they want the scoop. And so props to them for bringing him on. They've all heard it now, and so make sure you're tuned into Busted Open tomorrow because I imagine we're going to hear something about this again. That out of the way, and we can talk more about this in the after show if we want to, or whatever you guys want to talk about. I do have one other piece of news I have to throw in really, really quickly. You guys wanted some NWA news, some movement on the NWA. I just received an exclusive as we're talking right now that I think is going to turn Rob Stinson's mood around just a little bit. I can confirm 100% that on Friday, September the 18th, 2020, on Title Match Wrestling Network or live if you go to missionprowrestling.net, Hell Hath No Fury will be taking place, and it will be headlined by an NWA World Women's Championship match. Thunder Rosa will be defending that title against the American Kaiju, Lindsay Snow.
There it
Confirmed.
is. There it is.
Oh, snap.
So we're going to get NWA Women's Championship match, and two badass ladies are about to go at it on September 18th. So I'm gonna be super excited about that.
Are they having audience members there? Are they selling in-person tickets or what?
It says they're selling tickets. I haven't like confirmed anything for sure, but it says you can buy your tickets at missionprowrestling.net.
I think they are, Rob, because I saw a tweet earlier that said masks will be required. So
okay, so
mask up and get there, bud.
Well,
I've seen the artwork. I was told I could not post it yet, but I was told that it would be okay to announce it here to all of you people on the show right now, that is a confirmed championship match that will be taking. So, and yes, Brian Cervantes in the chat is confirming, yes, tickets are available for this show. So you guys get excited. That's going to be awesome. And
I have 6 vacation days to spend or lose. So there they go. Boom.
All right.
Oh, Rob's already all over this.
I'm literally looking up Expedia right now. I really am, man. Normally my wife does that for me because I usually make a bad deal and she's way smarter than I am. But
we can at least get through the rest of this show, Rob. I mean, I'm sure that maybe like even if it's sold out right this second because of our show announcing that, I'm sure that the Rosas would probably help you out if you were really gonna fly down there and try to catch that. I'm sure they'd be generous to you.
I'm going to be there. If it's happening, I'm going to be there.
Well, we'll definitely be covering it either way. So I'm stoked.
Yeah, definitely. We're gonna treat this like an NWA show. Absolutely. We love Brian and Thunder Rosa, and we love what they're doing, and we're super happy to be in this moment in time to see this all women's promotion growing up. So we want to celebrate Mission Pro Wrestling for sure. All right. Unless you guys have any other breaking news items, we went way over Will's schedule. I feel like he's going to strangle us all in the post-production meeting.
It was a pipe dream to have a schedule. We'll try again.
Yeah. I mean, for what it's worth, I mean, it was a very newsworthy edition of the show, which has not been the case lately. It's been hard to run across news that we feel like we could actually just go in on regarding the NWA and everything. So this has been good. But we got it here. A building feud between Nick Aldis and Bruce Prichard, an NWA Women's Championship match confirmed. Just lots of stuff. A Carney Land meet up by a Zoom.